Need some suspension work and shocks and brakes, brake pads, lining, steering box, transmission, rear end.
Ka-chow.
Just don't see no cars! It works! I love this button!
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
All right, welcome back to the Unnamed Movie Car Podcast, recording at you live from somewhere in the California desert.
Yeah, I think it's outside of. Where was he at? Wasn't he in L.A.?
You saw all these we're doing Duel. First of all, we're doing Duel, the 1971 film by Steven Spielberg.
Tell you what we're doing. So.
It was all these signs of Southern California.
Yes.
And he was in the city, but then magically he's just outside the city.
Yeah.
In this endless void of desert.
And there's lots of hills.
And lots of hills. So
yeah,
we're doing Duel. If you're new to the show, we wait 10 minutes to spoil anything or really talk about the movie. In case you decide, at 9 minutes and 59 seconds that you actually want to watch it, you can pause before then. And when we're ready to talk about it, you're going to hear... Because we lost our Ecto 1 sound effect over the years.
So now we've got... Okay, but it's not now.
No, but not now. But when this plays, that means that we're going to talk about it, but not now at the 10-minute mark when this plays. All right, I hope that's clear. All right.
So when you hear that, I'm not going to play it again, but when you hear that, that's when we're going to do spoilers. So, so it's outside of... This is actually... Well, we can talk about it. It's Steven Spielberg.
Yes, it's Steven Spielberg's first film.
And no, we were going to talk about, too, the fact that we're also going to do another podcast about... I was going to say Iron Man, but it's not.
That's not even close. Fall Guy. That's not even one of those words was the right one. I guess Man and Guy.
It's very similar.
So I chose these two movies. Yeah. We're going to do another episode about Fall Guy. I have been on a lot of planes recently, so I've been watching them. I've been watching car movies in their intended format, which is 8-inch by 4-inch screens with free United Airlines headphones.
Shout out to United Airlines.
Fit so poorly.
Yeah.
I mean, I might as well... I think they're playing the audio outside the plane while I'm listening to it. So if I misquote some dialogue, that's on me, but it's because of the free headphones in which United Airlines gave me.
Which you'll probably only...
In economy.
You were probably only hearing... Bing bong.
Yeah.
Bing dong. I love that sound, by the way, on the airplanes. I don't know why. I just love that sound. Nick actually has it on his phone.
Oh, of course he does.
It's one of his sounds.
I do want to say we do a little bit of pre-ramble here. Have you? Did you watch the most recent SNL?
No, I have not watched SNL for a long time.
The reason I bring it up, they had a funny bit about podcasts.
No,
they did they made fun of podcasts, but it's a doctor's appointment. So you come in and they're like, it's a doctor's appointment, but it feels like a podcast. Okay. So you come in and he sits down at a mic and they're like, they're all doing this crazy energy thing. And they're like, so how many beers do you have a week, man? And he's like, 5 or 10. You see the doctor jotting it down. And he's like, so men can actually get their feelings out because men only share their true opinions
on podcasts. Well,
I'll have to send it to you.
That's the only time you and I talk. So
that is true. That is true. And
it's not an actual podcast.
It has gotten worse. Yeah, it's gotten worse because I have moved away from the $151 million studio.
It's good to be back in the studio.
It's weird.
Isn't it?
It's very, very...
It's odd.
So here's the thing.
Especially for you. Go ahead.
Peel back the curtain. Fourth wall break here for a second. We record this in the basement of my childhood home.
Yes.
And I moved out... It's been a while. It's been what, 7-8 months?
Has it been 8 months? Probably.
July. It's January now.
Okay, yeah, that's probably right.
It's funny because there's on this end table behind me. Yeah, there's still wrappers from me and stuff. It's just it's just this weird frozen in time area down here.
Shows you how much I clean the basement.
Well, it's not dirty stuff, but it's what I'm looking at is this is
food wrapper. Well, it's not like food wrapper.
This was
Yeah, wasn't
a
it a
chocolate in the shape of an Indy car
Yeah, which
that
I
I
thought
got
was
when I
cool.
went to Indianapolis. And the packaging is cool. It's not just like a wrapper.
No, it is. It looks like an Indy car, but I didn't know if I should throw it away or if you're going to save that because I think didn't Bella give that to you or did you?
No,
just give it?
I bought it myself, so
Okay.
you could toss it.
Okay.
But it's funny being back
Yeah.
here, and it feels like home, but also
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
feel like, because
No.
I know after we record these podcasts, I'm
Yeah.
going to get in my car and then I'm going to
Yes.
drive home, which
Yes.
is just strange.
This is not your home anymore.
I know. I
It's not.
used to just walk upstairs after these, and then I'd edit them on my computer in my room and go to bed. And
Yes.
now
that is
I
true.
have like a 40-minute drive.
Yes.
in
I'll
my
have to give you-
Maserati.
Yes, you have a
I feel
Maserati
like
today.
such
which
a
is,
douchebag in it.
Do you really?
Here's
Yeah?
the thing. It's a Maserati. What is it? It's a Grecale Trofeo.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I said. Yeah.
It's a
That's
twin turbo
that's what I was
V6.
thinking of, yeah.
$127,000.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
a lot of money.
atrocious for
It's
a
a
car.
lot of money.
I was driving it today, and I get these press cars for my job, and so I'm given a car and I can drive it around for a week,
Yeah.
and then I do a review of it. And I pulled up today, and there was someone panhandling, like just outside my neighborhood,
Yeah,
asking for
right,
money
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
And I was like, man, this feels weird because I ain't got it. Brother, I don't
know,
have cash.
I know.
I don't have
Well,
anything to give these
but you were-
guys.
you were in the
and I
Maserati?
but I was in the Maserati,
jeez.
and I'm like, he's looking at my $3,000 wheel package. He's
Yeah.
looking at my $6,000 upholstery package, my $2,800 speaker package.
And I'm sure that's what he was saying to himself.
I don't think he
Look
was-
at that $6,000 rim package.
I don't think he had an itemized list in his head, but it was just like a very gross feeling.
Sure. Yeah. No.
But
yeah.
it's a cool car. It's twin turbo, but it's a $60,000 car.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I could see that selling for like 85, 90, but 127 is a stretch.
I think to be honest, one of the only reasons why people even know about Maserati is the song.
I say that in the video,
Yeah.
and I mentioned because the speedometer goes up to 190,
Right.
and I said Maserati had the opportunity to do the funniest thing in the world of making the speedometer go up to 185.
Yep. Exactly.
And they missed it by 5 miles an hour. Maybe they thought like, oh, that's 5 miles an hour more, so you can go
Right,
above
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
I was like, man, they should really. It's a digital screen too. It's a completely digital
they
gauge
could-
cluster.
Well,
They should just do an over-the-air update.
I was going to say that's a firmware upgrade. That's, that's an update.
I would love it
yeah.
if my speedometer went up to 185 in a Maserati.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That song probably has sold so many Maseratis.
Right, exactly. And, it is, that is the iconic, my Maserati just 185.
Yeah.
And that's
Dun, dun,
everybody,
dun, dun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. So, I appreciate
It's not a
that,
great
but-
brand though. I mean, the cars
No?
that they make,
Okay.
I've gotten several. It's a good car. I like the car.
I think we've talked about that. Don't they have the trident as their symbol?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Poseidon's
Trident,
whatever.
yeah. But, so...
You'll be able to buy that car sitting outside,
Yeah.
$127,000. And I know we joke about our podcast studio price.
Right.
That's the real price, is $127,000.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to buy that car after like a lease is up or something. Buy it for like 50,
Really?
probably 40.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
they depreciate like a lead brick.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
So
Well, it's good to know.
it's a cool car, but
Yeah.
other
no,
than that,
it's. I mean, you were talking about how cool that is and
Yeah.
stuff, and I mean, so there certainly were no Maseratis in Duel. That's not.
there
a
were no
spoiler
Maserati.
alert.
There was barely
there was.
anything.
Well, and then we can say too, this isn't a spoiler, is that I think what was it, 1971 was when this was
Yeah.
made. So this is Steven Spielberg's first full-length feature film,
Mm-hmm.
and it was made in 1971. And the reason why too, we were talking about the Iron Man or whatever.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy is the other movie that I watched. I watched these two movies back to back. So I
Yeah.
watched Duel, and then I watched Bionic Man.
Fall Guy. Jeez. Come on.
I watched Fall Guy, and literally there's 53 years of
Yeah.
difference between when the first movie Duel was made in 71 and Fall Guy was made in 2024. So 53 years of filmmaking in between there.
Yeah,
it
and
was amazing to watch.
I feel like it's pretty easy to say like, oh, like, the CGI has gotten incredibly better. Green screen is now used.
Well, there was like no CGI.
Well, obviously, and we'll talk about that. But
yeah.
But just the way that the story's told, pacing of it, the TikTok generation has our attention spans are cooked, as the kids would say.
And we'll talk about that about Duel, about how that's a very different feeling in how he emoted the feelings of that particular character in the movie, and the weird angles that they used and stuff to make you feel weird about it. But so
we're at 57, 58, 59.
So, okay.
Hey, we can talk about the movie now.
Oh,
what was that?
That was the different.
Was that the Windows XP starting?
Okay. I was looking. These are different things we have on our pad here.
I'm gonna be honest, folks. We're gonna use that a lot in this episode.
Well, so okay, that's a good question. Did you not like it? I mean, that's.
What are your thoughts? I want to hear yours. I want to hear yours first.
I had never seen this movie. I'm a big fan of Steven Spielberg, of course, and he had a.
You were like 50 when it came out.
Wow. So I'm like 103 things. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I'm just kidding.
No, so when because I was Steven Spielberg was the guy, the director.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, growing up, even me. Jurassic Park, E.T.
Yeah, he was the
Ready
guy.
Player One.
Right.
Funny enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So I'd never seen the movie though.
Yeah.
Always heard about it, and what I heard about it was, it's about this guy who it's basically a road rage movie.
Yeah,
that's really what it is.
Oh, 100%.
It's an hour and a half of road rage. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, there's no way possible that they can make this entire movie about just that one thing.
That's where you're wrong, buddy.
I was like, what? Like, and then I kept going, well, how are they gonna like pull this out for that long of a period of time? Like, wouldn't somebody stop this thing from happening and all of that? But so my reaction to this was, it was very interesting to see. It made me. The movie actually made me nervous because I've been in situations. I think everyone has been in a situation where they have some, a-hole in a truck or some vehicle that's got road rage and cuts them off or whatever. Everyone in traffic, everyone who's ever driven in traffic has had someone, cut them off or do something impolite to them or whatever in driving. So I think it was something that everyone could connect to. Say, oh well, okay. There's this thing. There's this crazy truck that is the guy's being a jerk who's driving the truck. So in that respect, I was like, oh well, this is really interesting. And again, it made me nervous. Also, we talked about pacing. The older movies, you got a smile on your face, so it's probably like super slow to you. There was a very slow pace to a lot of this because. You think about movies nowadays, they have to go really quick, like boom, 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 boom. And like you said, TikTok generation, boom, you got 7 seconds and I'm on to the next thing. This started out really slow, and it was interesting that in the first part of the movie, it was really just the point of view of the car. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even the driver. It was the point of view of the car, pulling out of the garage, going through the city.
The radio show that was going on.
And it was only an AM radio, by the way, which was pretty hilarious.
I've driven plenty of cars with AM only.
Exactly. So I found it interesting. It was, obviously it was slow to start, but then they started getting into this thing. Okay, I'm going to ask you in a second because you can...
No, you're fine. You're fine.
So... It was obviously the pacing was very different. Now I'm more used to movies like that. I grew up with movies like that, so where it was a little bit slower to get started and go through. But I actually thought that, given when this was made, given the fact that there wasn't like super duper special effects, I mean there were, but not much. I thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was. I did. I thought it was a good movie. Again, given that time period, that's what I'll give it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So go ahead. I'm dying to hear now because you're grinning from ear to ear.
I am truly impressed.
Yeah.
That Steven Spielberg got another job after this. Genuinely, how?
Wow.
Thank you. How did he get a second job after this? Now he went on to produce great stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's no denying that Steven Spielberg's one of the best to ever do it.
Right.
this just goes to show you that the greatest ever
Yeah.
has flaws and starts somewhere.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This movie was off.
Go ahead.
In the same flight,
Yeah.
I fell asleep during it, and I shut it off to look out the window.
Yeah. I get it.
It was almost like pulling teeth.
Was it really?
Oh,
it
yeah.
was annoying to you?
I liked. It was cool to see the old vintage stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so much of it didn't make sense to me. And
Yeah,
so
I
much
get
of
it.
it just
I get it.
had no point.
Yeah.
The whole movie had no point. And again, we're into spoilers. The ending was unsatisfactory.
Well, okay, so that's another thing is he actually violated a couple of the laws that you're not supposed to violate as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
One is that you should have a satisfactory ending. You should have something that satisfies the audience. And it was it's funny because I knew what the ending was going to be, even though I didn't know the ending.
Mm-hmm.
I knew exactly what was going to happen. And then there was no like, okay, so because of that,
Right.
yeah, because this or that.
Quite literally fell off a cliff at the end. Because here's
exactly.
my first big gripe with the movie
Yeah.
is that he calls his wife.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I'm going to be late, whatever, XYZ.
Yeah. Right.
And he does this whole thing. And she goes, oh, is this about the thing from the other night?
Yes.
Which we never learn about.
right.
And
Yes.
then we never see the wife again. We never
No.
see the wife again.
No,
we
the
never
wife
hear
and
from her
kids,
again.
nothing.
It's never resolved.
No.
We don't see him make it home at the end of the day and go, oh my gosh, the day I've had, we don't get, it just crashes. And then he's like, he's stuck in the desert. What if he starved to
Yeah.
death? Like, there just wasn't a satisfying ending.
I think
and
he did.
Yeah, I mean, Duel 2. He's
just
fighting a
electric
lizard for a
boogaloo.
bottle of water.
Yeah. No, so my take on that, the reason why that was all brought up was there has to be some struggle. Movies have to show some change in a person over time. So what I think that they were trying to say was that this guy didn't stand up for himself and didn't stand up for his wife. That's what they were trying to establish, I think. And what they were doing was saying, okay, now this truck is being an a-hole to this guy. What is he going to do? Is he going to ever stand up for himself? So that's why they had the bar scene where he goes in and messes with the guy.
And the AM radio show at the beginning, the guy's complaining. He's like, I'm not the man of the house.
Right,
How do
exactly.
I? Yeah.
And that's why I think they were building on that was to show that this character basically was a wuss, that he did not want to stand up for himself or his wife or anything. And by the end of the movie, this is a spoiler, he does stand up for himself. He gets really pissed off. He gets pushed over the edge, literally, and he just decides, I'm not going to take it anymore, and just goes for it. And and then there's... Anyway, but I think that's the reason why they set that up was to show that there was some arc to that character.
Can I let you in on a little secret?
Yeah. You didn't
that whole phone call scene was added in because the movie wasn't long enough.
No.
Dead serious.
There
was
okay,
two scenes that were three scenes that were added in.
Okay, there were 45 scenes added in.
The whole movie.
Right.
So Steven Spielberg made this movie for TV. Do you know?
Oh, he did? No, I didn't know
this
that.
was it was 75 minutes. But in order for it to be a theatrical release, it had to be 90 minutes.
Right. So you had to pad it.
So they had to pad it.
Okay.
Can you guess the other two scenes that were padded into it?
Oh, let me think.
Egregiously long, annoying scenes that didn't mean anything. Go ahead.
I would say maybe the one where he's at the gas station, the guy's filling up the car, and he has the conversation with him, and he's looking at the radiator hose. No. Because
the radiator hose ended up coming to bite him at the end.
It does, and that's the what do they call it? The such and such as the gun, the Russian gun or whatever. Basically, if you introduce something in the beginning of a movie, you need to come back to it.
Sure.
I think I want to say Kalashnikov's, but that is the AK-47. That's the guy who created that. No, it was someone's
Sure.
but anyway,
Luger.
Luger's got basically
Nationality.
basically the whole idea of that is that if you show a prop or you bring up something, you need to have it make some
Sure.
reappearance in the film. So no, okay, so you're right with that. I'm good. No, I have no idea. You just tell me because I have no idea.
The bus scene.
Oh, the bus scene. That was so annoying. I was so mad at
I
those
wanted
kids.
to punch every single one of those
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
If I wasn't on a plane,
No,
I would
I
have
would've-
screamed.
Yeah.
Um,
That was annoying.
Which
as
we'll get
heck.
back to the bus scene in a second because I do want to talk about that scene. The
Okay.
other one
Yeah.
was the railroad scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Where the truck was trying to push the car onto the railroad tracks.
Really? Or was it when he was sitting next to the railroad tracks when he was fall asleep? Because he goes down. He goes
Oh,
down.
you know what? It's
to-
probably that.
Yeah, he goes.
It just
down,
said railroad scene.
So that might have been it because I would think that yes, for tension to build excitement and action,
Sure.
you'd want to have the truck pushing him into
Yeah.
the railroad train. But going, so at one point in the film, for people that haven't seen it, big spoiler, he goes, he passes the truck, and he's trying to get away from the truck. So he drives his car down this ravine by some railroad tracks, and he says, you hear him in his voice, in his voiceover, which, by the way, didn't have to do that. But in his voiceover, he says, I'm just going to sit here for an hour. I'm going to let the truck will be an hour away, and this will all be over. And so he falls asleep in the car. It's been an hour, and then a train comes along the tracks next to him, and it
Wakes him up.
It wakes him up, and it has kind of the same horn as the truck has. Anyway, that scene very much could have been added to pad the film, basically. But anyway, so there's those two scenes.
The bus scene.
Let's go back to that because you're really mad about the bus
Well,
scene.
okay, two reasons. First of all, those children were annoying.
They were very annoying.
And the guy was like, "Oh, they're not causing any trouble. If a kid jumps and sits on my car,
yeah,
I'm shooting them."
yeah.
You know, not really. They're
Right.
children, but that
No.
was very annoying. But I get it. It was probably trying to build angst and whatever.
They was trying to build tension.
The second thing,
Yeah.
the truck comes and helps the bus.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Why?
Oh, so I thought about that too.
So maybe it's a sliver of humanity, and maybe there is a person inside the truck, and it's not just this demented, twisted truck. Then why don't we see any glimpse of it ever again?
Of the school bus or
no,
the truck?
of the truck being nice.
Okay.
Because the truck. Okay, there's a school bus. It's stalled,
Yeah.
and first of all, the school bus driver standing in the middle of the road, signaling him to pull over. Dude, I am putting my foot to the floor. If you try to jump in the middle of a highway and say, "Hey, you're pulling over,"
that's what I'm saying. Nowadays,
you're done.
That doesn't happen nowadays.
Well, nowadays he would just take his cell phone out and
right.
You know,
Boop, 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 boop.
yeah. This would be a TikTok live of road rage.
It would last about 30 seconds,
Yeah.
and that would be about it. But and that is the thing too. I remember driving in California or Utah and things like that. No cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the middle of nowhere. You are very cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought it was it's not funny, but it was kind of funny where he thought it was a police car, and it was like a pest control car.
Oh yeah,
It looked like a police car.
yeah.
From a distance. So he was trying to rush up and get it. I think going back to that, though, I think the reason why the truck helped the school bus was I think that they were trying to, they were trying to make this truck seem like it was more like a deity or something, like a small g god, where it was this being. It wasn't a truck really, and it was a force of nature. So as a force of nature, sometimes it's good and sometimes it does help people, and maybe in a bizarre way, it actually helps the guy by pushing him, which is what he needs to stand up for himself finally. I'm going to throw that out there, And you don't buy that at all, do you?
No, I don't think that much thought was put into this.
I think
Steven. Someone said, "Steven, you got to make it longer," and he was like, "Okay, I'll do it." You know, it's just
that's a good impression of Steven. Spielberg sounds just like him.
The guys from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Yeah,
they used to have a podcast, and they did a impression of Steven Spielberg that was actually pretty spot on.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
right.
shout out to them.
Yeah.
So I just my issue with it
Yeah.
is that there's this like moment of like, oh, that maybe the truck isn't so bad, and like
maybe it's benevolent. Maybe it's
and
not
I think
bad.
it was also like the guy to be like, oh, maybe this is all in my head, that this guy isn't actually mad at me. Sure.
Yeah.
But then we just never saw that ever again. It was just this momentary.
Right.
Oh, nice. Okay, leaving. Let's move on with it.
Yeah. Now you see and it was really interesting how like every time he tried to approach the truck, like the truck would move away. And it was always staying just far enough away that the guy could not go in and see who the driver was. And of course, they never show the driver of the truck ever. But you do see his arm, his hairy arm. So it's definitely some guy, some dude, or maybe, I don't know, it could be a woman.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, anyway, a sexist on that. I'm just going to say it could be man, woman, whatever. But he does wave him on and say, okay. But you never see him. And of course, that is a very classic Spielberg,
never
thing.
see the monster.
Never see the monster. Never see the guy driving the truck, because I think again, you weren't supposed to see the guy in the truck. He was just that was a being, like a superpower. It wasn't, So
another scene I had an issue with.
Okay, I have a bunch of issues too with a bunch of scenes, but go ahead.
The telephone booth.
Yep. I knew you were going to say that.
Where here's my issue.
Yeah.
It's the only time that the movie really concerns other people.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been a stronger movie if it never concerned anyone else.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The car that he runs up to and is like, please call the cops.
Right.
It would have been great if they were like, we don't see a truck.
Right.
Because then you go, okay, is this guy going through this, or is this guy just having a mental break and is facing something that no one else knows about? But then the phone booth scene, he drives through the phone booth, he ruins the reptile sales.
The spiders and the reptiles, which was really weird.
It was just a weird addition, and the lady was there, and there was witnesses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It just, I get it added suspense.
Yeah.
But I don't know, to me it like kind of took me out of like man versus truck.
Yeah.
Now it's just this like crazy dude.
Right, I get you. I
or
understand.
dudette.
I think, and I think because there's a couple things that, of course, I would have gone back, I would have done differently. Back then, too, remember 1971, I don't think there was quite as much sophistication in what you're talking about to say, okay, let's think about it that way. This was kind of a thriller kind of movie where you had this crazy truck, crazy driver. It's all about road rage. Because in the beginning of the movie, he does what everyone has done, is you pass a truck. Like you pass on the left-hand side, and you go around the truck. And everyone has done that 9 times out of 10, probably 99 times out of 100. Yeah. Everything's fine. It's not a big deal. You're just passing up the truck. That's fine. But from that, just that one initial thing, that's it. That sparks this whole duel that goes on the entire time. So, I get that, too, where you're saying, well, if it was just the guy. Now, that would have been very cool, where, like, for instance, he's in the diner, and he's sitting there. And by the way, he never pays for his food. There's a couple things that really bother me. So, one of the things is when, right before the diner, he's being run off. He was run off the road by the truck. And he slams into and breaks a fence. Yeah. There's a white fence. And I was annoyed by that because I was like, well, dude, you just broke this guy's fence. Yeah. And there's like a farmer who comes out and just kind of stares at him.
He leaves his car in the fence.
He just leaves his car.
He's like, oh, man.
All right.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, what are you, Fast and Furious? What the heck's going on with that? So anyway, he gets out of the car, goes across the street. No one like is following him going, hey, dude, you just wrecked my fence. Are you going to pay for that fence? Like, what's going on here? Let's get your insurance, blah, blah, blah. Nothing like that. He just leaves his car with the fence. Then he goes to a diner, and they have a lot of point of view and shaky camera following him, just to make it very almost annoying and nervous, because he's really it was a nerve-wracking thing for him.
Yeah.
So he gets into the diner, does this stuff, and then he goes and gets a sandwich. Now, he asked for a sandwich. Do you remember the sandwich that he asked for?
I do not.
It was like a white cheese sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
with
Something
no meat.
so 70s.
It was very 70s. And
yeah,
then
it was a white cheese sandwich with sideburns, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
It was a plaid sandwich
right.
with sideburns
Right.
and a Marlboro Red in a brown ashtray.
Exactly, like an amber ashtray. So the thing is that the woman leaves, and he's about to say, and he says, "Oh, I'd like some ketchup." Ketchup on a white cheese sandwich doesn't.
If
make
we
any
had
sense.
a unnamed food podcast, unnamed movie food podcast, which isn't a bad idea,
Oh,
trademark.
Okay, all right. Well,
Hold on, hey, hey.
2025. Any movie cover.
That would be funny to try foods
Yeah, it would
from
be.
movie, and that would be on the list because that
That would
just
definitely
doesn't
be.
seem
No,
good.
there was nothing. And then he drank a lot of water, which is fine.
Never pees the rest of the movie though.
No, he doesn't. No, he sweated a lot. It was a lot of sweating.
Electrolytes.
Yeah. But then, then it was good where he kind of has to stand up for himself. So he's in the bar. He picks the wrong guy. But you never. So it would have been cool where if he would have looked out the window, the truck is there. Then he goes and talks to somebody and he comes back and the truck is gone.
Yeah.
Then he would kind of be thinking, well, am I just seeing this? There's nobody in here, obviously. It's not their truck. And just be curious. And then if he gets back on the road, doesn't see anything, fine. And then all of a sudden, looks in the rearview mirror, it's there. So that would have been cool. Like you said, if it was not... Because remember, the guy in the school bus was talking about what truck. And I think...
Yeah, I think that would have been a great thing.
That would have been a great thing.
Oh my God. And then we end
yeah.
the movie and the truck crashes, the car crashes, and he's hitchhiking, and then he's like, "Oh, did you see that explosion?" And they're like, "No."
No, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
just I feel like it would have been, I guess, more of like a psychological killer. And I understand we're like trying to like revise this movie that's 53 years old, but I don't know. To me, it would have been a more interesting movie.
Yeah.
And like you, I was doing research for this, and I pulled up the IMDb page.
Okay.
And which we'll get to the trivia in a second.
Wait a minute, like me, I don't do any research whatsoever.
Yeah, that's fair. But it said a film where a man is taunted by a truck after an incident of road rage. Yeah. And I said, that is the entire movie.
It is.
Save yourself the time.
That is the entire
You don't
movie.
have to watch it. Just read that sentence. Go, that is interesting.
Yeah.
And move on with your day.
Right. That is the entire movie. And again, I was thinking, how in the world are they going to stretch out this road rage for the entire time and make it actually work? Again, okay, it's Spielberg and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, fine. But there was this sense of, this is really, really crazy. And I do agree with you. Would have been cool if, like, he talked to that lady who had the snakes or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, she had not seen any trucks. She didn't see the truck down the road. No truck has been through here for a long time.
Truck comes through, breaks stuff. Then she comes outside and is like, "What did you do?"
Right.
And then he's like, "Did you not see the giant black truck come through here?" And
Yeah.
she was like, "No." I don't know. It just...
Well, right.
That whole scene was like, oh, this actually is happening.
Right.
And the whole movie before that, I'm like, maybe this guy is hallucinating because they show these long stretches of the desert and heat waves, and it's like, like if when you're driving on a long straight road, like you can see stuff. I mean, you can start hallucinating. There's a thing with truckers called the Black Dog. Have you heard about this?
No.
So I guess like when like old school truckers would drive like 15, 16, 17 hours a day.
Yeah.
It was this phenomenon where they would think that there was like a black dog on the side of the road.
Okay.
They would like start hallucinating this basically. And it was like this, like, basically it's known as like you need sleep if you're seeing the black dog.
Gotcha.
Like you are sleep deprived and hallucinating.
Right. Okay.
And it's, there are truckers that like they immediately pull over and stop if they think they saw a black dog on the side of the road or something. Yeah. So like I at the start of the movie, I was like,
if you ran a motel,
Yeah.
if you had fake black dogs, stuffed dogs
Sure.
near there,
Yeah. Like
then
that stupid black stuffed panther you brought home
yes,
that one time.
was awesome. That thing
He
was
brought
great.
home this like Halloween. It was a stuffed black panther.
It was not. I mean, it's not a real Black Panther.
No,
it was a
it
stuffed
was
animal.
like a stuffed
It was
animal.
like
But
you get at the carnival.
but it was upstairs, and I came upstairs in the dark, and it scared the piss out of me.
Because it does have a realistic shape. I mean, the shape does look like a cat or
Yeah.
dog or something like that. It looks like an animal. And no, and it's no, that was pretty
That was
cool.
freaky.
But it was, but I understand that, and I understand that, especially when you drive, as you know, when you've been driving for a long time, your mind can definitely play tricks with you.
Yeah.
And
so
so
I thought
if
the
they-
whole beginning of the movie, I'm like, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
It's all in
Right.
this guy's mind. And then they legitimized it with other people seeing it and wrecking this lady's reptile store. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So it's not in his mind.
No, I get that, and you're right. It would have been actually pretty cool if, like, just one little thing, like her snakes had been tipped over.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big thing, but she's like, "Well, what did you do?" And it was the truck that actually
Yeah.
came through and knocked it over. But he's like, "No, I didn't do." And she's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" You know,
Because
so that
also
kind of stuff.
the people at the end in the car that he was like trying to get to call 911,
yeah,
they were like, you're a crazy person.
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
right.
And I'm like, okay, well, but we
And
know
there-
that the truck exists.
Right.
So
And there's a couple times, like in the cafe, where they do think he's a crazy person because of the way he's acting, and he's so overwhelmed by being haunted by this big truck and scared of the truck driver. He thinks he's making assumptions of who in the restaurant is the driver of the big truck. And so he's looking at all these guys, and it's funny because he only sees the guy's boots when they stop at a gas station. He
Yeah.
sees the truck driver's boots. Well, everyone in the cafe had boots on, which I thought was
the
kind of
cowboy
funny.
hat too.
yeah, exactly. So it was something where
Got clear
I
throat
was
there.
sorry. It was something where they were kind of building that up and building up that tension. You were thinking, wait a minute, maybe this guy's whacked out, because he started like blaming the guy who was just sitting there. He knocked the sandwich out of his hand and said, you know, I cut it out. I'm going to call the police. And then the guy got in a fight with him and hit him and stuff. That made it look like that guy was pretty crazy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things where I agree with you. That would have been kind of cool if they kind of kept that going.
Sure.
Like, is this guy, like, maybe even if he stops a cop or something along the way, and it's like, we haven't seen a truck come through in a long time, or, you know, I haven't seen a truck like that come through in a long time. We'll keep our eyes open.
Yeah. Or if like, you know, if he was like, oh, is this black Mack truck? Because I think it was a
Right.
Peterbilt or
I
something.
think so. Yeah, exactly.
And then like, you know, some guy would be like, I haven't seen a Mack truck.
Yeah.
You know, like
Right.
just like
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
those like
yeah.
I guess that would have been more 80s of like the miscommunication
Right.
era in
Right.
films where like
Oh,
one
yeah, yeah.
little piece of misinformation or miscommunication spawns the entire film.
Right. Exactly. No, I get that. And, I
but-
think,
Yeah.
and there was a couple things in there that was pretty cool. Like, obviously, the very first part, the very first thing you see of that truck is flammable. On the back of it, it says flammable in big words, and it's rolling coal the entire time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's smoke just
Yeah.
coming out of that thing, and you got to know that was a great way of a sensory thing to say, yeah, it probably smelled terrible,
Yeah.
and that's why the guy wanted to get around it, and it was just this big behemoth in the middle
Also,
of the road.
I guess the dude didn't have any schedule.
No,
I guess whatever he was
exactly.
dropping off or picking up didn't have to be anywhere
Right.
at a certain time.
Right.
I mean,
And-
I personally know truckers today,
Yeah.
and they are so strict on when
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
has to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Like they don't have like an hour and a half to lollygag
Right.
in the desert.
Right. Which I think goes back to that whole, this is not a truck, really.
It's a
this
demon
is
or
it's
an
a demon.
entity.
Yeah,
Sure,
it's
sure,
right.
sure,
It's
sure.
an entity. But because there was no schedule or anything. I do have to say that at the end of the movie, though, he did not do the trope of the big explosion, because the truck says flammable, and when
Yeah.
he goes over, yeah, it's cool that they take the truck over the cliff, and
Practical effects.
it was a very practical effect, and it did hit the car that was on fire, and I was like, wait a minute, what is going on with this car? Because there was like a whole bunch of things happening.
Okay,
with the
that
cars
was.
at the same
I have
time.
2 more points
Okay.
I want to hit, and that
All right,
was
'cause
one of them, which
it
we'll
was
talk
like-
about.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Here's the
We
thing:
got the exhausted sigh.
70s cars.
Yes.
If you look at the odometer, how many miles were on this
Oh,
car?
I don't remember.
4,000 miles.
Are you serious?
4,000 miles were on the odometer. It's like
Wow.
4,200 or something. And the radiator hose is already going bad. I mean, God bless American cars, but
Or maybe you brought it on Craigslist, which didn't exist.
yeah, it was just Craig at the time.
It was a guy named Craig.
But
Yeah.
he's going what, 70 miles
I
an
know,
hour,
yeah.
and he's overheating it.
Yeah. He wasn't even driving that fast.
No, not at all.
There were times when he was doing like 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, and then like to
35, 40.
speed up around him was like up to 65.
Yeah. I think
Which
so.
today, like our highways around here are 70.
Yeah, exactly.
So I always want to bring up this argument because it makes me so angry.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always people from yesteryear, post like, oh, cars were better back in the day. They were so much better.
Yeah.
And there's a picture that goes around every winter of it's downtown Chicago. It's Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah.
And it's all 60s cars like in the snow on Lakeshore Drive.
Oh, okay.
And the caption is, we didn't need traction control, we didn't need snow tires, and we all made it out fine. Like today's, generation is so. That's the thing. It's
Not
survivor
everyone.
bias.
Right.
I don't know anyone
Yeah.
that has personally, like, gotten into a bad car accident.
Okay.
Now I know I have friends that have passed away on motorcycles, but
Yes,
that's
but
its own thing, and that was their own dumb volition.
Yeah.
Modern cars are so safe and reliable.
Mm-hmm.
This car had
They are.
4,000 miles in this movie, and it was overheating by doing 70 miles an hour.
Well, that tracks. That tracks.
Insane.
I didn't realize it only had 4,000 miles. I mean, that's like a brand new car.
That's what I have the IMDb trivia that I pulled up, and that's part of it. But I mean, no, there's no way it was a 4-digit odometer. I mean, they had 5-digit odometers in the 70s.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, we have in the Model A, we have a 5-digit odometer on the Model A.
I thought we had a 4. Well, either way,
Maybe,
this was
I don't
definitely a
know.
5-digit.
Okay,
so like it was 4,000. Maybe it was 104, but the car came out the year the movie came out, so it was like, so there's
okay.
no way.
All right, so
this car is overheating by doing 70. Granted, it's in the desert, sure.
right.
But
And
what? How is the radiator hose already bad? Like,
well, they do. Yeah, they do say that, and they do that. Again, the reason they do that is to say, oh, well, that sets it up for in the future when it
right. It's 100% for the film. It's just so aggravating because I get the argument all the time of like older cars were better, and I'm like, I've never driven a modern car that's overheated after 4,000 miles.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely true, and that is aggravating. And
also, how is the truck not getting him when he's doing 11 miles an hour around a twisty
kidding.
uphill? I'm like, the truck should have rammed him off the road at that point.
Well, he says, "Oh, you can't catch me on the grade, on the up." Well, he doesn't say upgrade, but he says on the grade.
Yeah,
you can't keep up with me on the grade. But number one, the truck does.
Yeah,
which again is the whole thing of it's a super powerful truck, so it's got to be a deity or whatever. Okay, so it's doing that. It's also rolling really fast down the grade.
Yeah,
the downgrade. I mean, it's hauling, and so is his car, and he has it in neutral. By the way, I've driven in neutral down a mountainside at about 80 miles an hour. You can do that. I mean, that is a very realistic that you could do that. But to me, it was weird because it was like, okay, if the hose went, the radiator hose, and you know this, okay, you're going to get, number one, you're going to get a ton of smoke because the radiator fluid's hot, blah, 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 it's all over. Also, the car is going to finally seize at some point. Because
the motor's going to lock up. It's going to weld itself together.
Exactly, because that's exactly the only
friction
thing
welding.
Right,
Yeah.
it's going to cool itself off only by coolant. So if the coolant's gone, yes, you're going to friction weld and you're going to seize up the engine. Okay, so we got that. Yeah. That never happens to this car. Also, there's weird sparks and smoke coming from underneath the car. I don't know if you noticed that too. I was like, well, okay, there would be smoke, but not like underneath the car. Like that was almost like an oil thing happen? Like, did that engine just blow apart?
I guess.
Just like,
you know what? This is
you know.
one really long advertisement for Volkswagen. Air cooled. This would not have happened if he was driving a Carbon Ghia or a Bug or
exactly.
a Type 2 bus.
Right. No,
air cooled, baby.
Yeah, dude, that's
I do want to touch on one more thing before we get to.
Absolutely. Yeah,
we'll talk
definitely.
about the cars and we'll do the trivia.
Yep.
The ending's like that high speed chase where he's turning and he crashes through some like construction bollards.
Yes. Yeah.
Why does his mouth get bloody?
That's what I was wondering.
I replayed it twice. I hit the little back arrow on the plane twice, and I couldn't figure out how his mouth got bloody.
Yeah.
Because I was like, maybe I was staring out the window or something, but I was like, no.
It was the white cheese sandwich.
Oh, it came back with a vengeance.
No, it was. I have no idea. There was no explanation for it. Somehow, maybe he threw his head against the glass or something.
But the glass was intact, and I was like, okay, maybe the barricade, like the shrapnel came through. First, I was like, okay, I missed something. I got to scroll back. And then I was like, I didn't miss anything.
I think they just had to give him some sort of injury to raise the stakes.
I guess.
Because near the end of a movie, you have to do like
the car is a bench seat. Why wouldn't you make him not have a seatbelt on and fly across the bench seat? And
it's true. He does have a seatbelt on.
Yeah.
He does wear a seatbelt.
Hey, click it or take it, am I right?
Right, exactly. But back in the day, in 1971, no one wore a seatbelt.
Yeah. When were they legally required? Was that 1968?
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was fresh.
It was pretty fresh. People usually didn't do that. Actually,
people cut them out of their cars.
Yeah, well, and that is my uncle did, but it's one of the things that, back then it just wasn't something that was normally done, and there was no qualms about it. That was like back in the 1970s, you could throw garbage out of the window of a car
and make a Native American very sad.
Well, that didn't happen until I think maybe
that commercial.
Late 70s. Yeah,
there's a commercial
70s.
Of these people. If
Native
you're unfamiliar, these people in a car and they throw a styrofoam cooler out the window. By the way,
do they? Is it?
It's like a huge styrofoam cooler. I'm like, that's atrocious in any decade. And then it turns and there's a Native American and he looks into the camera and a tear comes out.
Right, exactly.
It's very cheesy.
It is, but it made a huge impact.
Made a huge impact, and it's very important. Please don't litter and stuff like that. But it was just very like.
But you have to remember, in my day, back in when I was a.
Has he actually coughs?
That's why I've had coffee.
Yeah,
back in
cough was a paid actor.
Back in the day when I was a kid, there was a ton of littering. There were cups and plastic wrappers and everything everywhere. It was bad. And they had a big push to, don't be a litter bug. Years and years went by, and it actually worked. That whole thing worked. People are very less likely. Now, people
I chased a napkin down the street today because it flew out of my car. Yeah.
People are much more aware of that, and that whole societal thing that shifted because of that whole push. Keep America beautiful. Don't be a litter bug. All that stuff.
It's the idea of littering is bonkers to me.
Oh, it is.
It's just insane.
Well, it is. There's no two ways about it. It's
so we'll get to the cars.
Okay, let's get to the cars.
This is a car podcast.
It is okay. Yeah.
Really, we only have two cars to talk about. In all reality, the car and the truck.
Yes.
So the car was a Plymouth Valiant.
Yes.
They had 4 cars in the making of the movie. They had a 1969 which had the 318 V8, which funny enough, the 318 V8 was an optional engine for the Ram truck that we had.
Was it?
The 5.2 liter was the 318. The 360 was the 5.9. We had the 5.9, which was the 360.
Right.
But the 318 that
Really?
you could get in the Ram goes back to the late 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
The Magnum V8. So they had a 1969 with the V8. Then they had a 1970 and 1971 that had the Slant 6, which was the 225 cubic inch slant 6.
All right.
And then they also had a 1972 with the slant 6 that they used for the reshoots. So they used that for the added bus scene, the railroad scene, and the phone call scene.
So that's when he gets the bumper stuck underneath the bumper of
the Now they did outfit the cars with the proper bumpers to, I believe, mimic technically the movie Cars is 71.
Okay.
But so they put the right bumpers on and all that stuff.
Well, that's good.
But I think that was actually perfect car casting. Although Steven Spielberg said he didn't care what car it was, he just wanted it to be red to stand out. The Plymouth Valiant, because I actually drove a 73, 72 or 73 I drove in baby blue. It's also the car that Homer Simpson's car is based off of.
Oh, you're kidding.
It's
a Valiant?
Yeah, technically a Valiant.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, obviously they don't say it in the show.
Is that the real movie-driven car?
The Volo Auto Museum has a recreation of Homer Simpson's car, and it's a pink Valiant, and they put the crunches in the front fender.
Oh my god!
Yeah. We should go up there and see it.
Yeah, we should. Yeah,
maybe we'll do a special in-person episode like we did with Ghostbusters.
Well, now that we have the microphones and stuff,
just walking around with the podcast set with the headphones on. All right, today we're at the Volo Auto Museum, and someone's yelling at us. Someone's telling us to leave. They're saying we didn't pay admission. We did not pay admission.
Exactly.
This was such a regular car.
Yes.
Because I drove one.
Car.
It was an everyman's car. I drove one, and they had a 2-door version that was like kind of hot. You could get it with the V8. There's also like the Duster. Was around at the same time, and that was like, muscle car guys. This was like the lame version of that. This was like the. I mean, like moms and dads and grandmas drove Valiants.
Yeah.
And so because I did the review of one, and I got a bunch of comments of like, why would someone restore the 4-door base model slant 6?
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a point, but also, I mean, I love driving regular cars, but so I think that casting of it of like, this was a very normal car. It's like if they made it today, like the guy's driving like a Honda Civic.
Right, exactly. And this guy was
Forte.
Right. Our standard.
Yeah.
Your standard at least. But if they had this guy driving like a Porsche, that wouldn't have worked.
Porsche wouldn't have worked. Like even like a pickup truck wouldn't have worked. If it was anything semi-cool, if it was like a Challenger or Charger, it wouldn't have worked.
No, it wouldn't have. It just was. This was the he was a traveling salesman, I guess, and whatever. He was a businessman, and he had to go do something. He had to do some meeting.
And at the time, because this is pre-oil crisis.
Yeah.
There wasn't really compact cars. There wasn't really.
That's true.
Like the Pinto wasn't really around.
But this was a smaller car.
It wasn't in the era.
In that era.
That's like considered full size today. But
I know,
it was just a regular car. So I really liked that.
No, I think that was good.
Slightly annoying that Steven Spielberg said he didn't really care what car it was as long as it was red. But
I know.
The other one was the truck, obviously. Yeah. So it was a 1957 Peterbilt 281. Or 281.
Okay.
It had several license plates on the front.
Yes, it did.
To suggest that he had murdered people in other states.
Really?
That was like the hidden messaging with the several license plates.
Wait, is that from IMDb?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm not sure about that, because truck drivers do have, at least they used to have a bunch of license plates from all different states, and that was a normal thing for truck drivers because they would travel through a lot of different states, and they had to be like certified or whatever.
It did say that it had the proper certifications to be driving where it was driving.
Right. So it could be. Well, and also you think about that too, is that it makes it more of an omni deity or demon, or
because I don't think we ever see a rear license plate.
I don't think so. I don't think so. You just see flammable.
Yeah.
Like the devil.
It had a Cat turbocharged 1673B engine with a 13-speed manual transmission.
13 speed?
13 speed.
Holy cow.
I've driven an 18-speed.
I know you have.
Semi. It's a handful.
I bet.
It is annoying.
Yeah.
I don't know how this guy did it in this movie. Then they only had one truck for filming. They had additional trucks for reshoots, but they only ever shot with one truck.
Wow.
And when they sent it over the cliff, they're like, we got to nail this.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And I'm sure back then, especially.
I mean, this was a small budget movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
That's very clear. I mean, I don't know where, if they had a budget, I don't know where it would have gone.
The snakes in the boxes. I think was that the lady had. I think that was probably one of the only. I mean, there was only a couple stunts, honestly.
Yeah,
really, at big time stunts. Yeah, there was the bar scene where the guy gets punched. That's okay.
Yeah. One of the facts, I don't know if we'll get to it or not. This was all shot on location. And apparently the studio wanted Steven Spielberg to use rear projection, and he said absolutely not.
Oh, really?
Which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
With that, do you want to get into the trivia before we
let's
wrap
do
up
that.
the show?
Yep, let's do that.
I think
Yep.
we're sitting at 55 minutes.
We are at 50. Yeah, we're at 55. You're right.
Minutes.
All right.
So this is brought to you by, but in no way sponsored by, IMDb.
Yeah.
Stock footage was used from this movie in an episode of The Incredible Hulk.
What?
Yeah, so they later 6 years later, in an episode of The Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno,
No.
they used stock footage of I believe the episode was like "Give Even a Trucker a Break" or "Give a Break to Even Truckers" or something like
Okay,
that.
yeah.
And this pissed Steven Spielberg off.
Oh, I bet.
And so in all of his future contracts, he said that his videos are not to be used as stock footage because the studio owns the rights.
Right, exactly. So
So there's an episode of The Incredible Hulk, and they just used like The Incredible Hulk is driving a red car, so like just some of the like long shots they just used from Duel, which really pissed off Steven Spielberg.
I would love to see those shots.
We should see if we could find that episode to see if it's like because the only screenshot I saw was Lou Ferrigno getting out of a red car dressed as Hulk. And the red car does not match the red car in the show or in the movie at all. So we'll see.
Well,
if we could dig that up, maybe
that would be kind of cool. I'd like to see that if I could. But,
according to Richard Matheson.
Yep.
I don't know who he is.
I don't know.
He was inspired to write the original short story of Duel after an encounter with a tailgating truck on November 22nd, 1963, the day that JFK was assassinated.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about unrelated info.
Wait, JFK was...
He was assassinated November 22nd, 1963.
Oh, that's right, 63, because
and that's the day that this guy, he was tailgated by a truck and decided to write this short story about it.
Because nothing else was going on in the world at the time. So
it's just such a weird fact because it's like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, it's a weird coincidence, I guess.
Right, yeah.
But it's like, oh man, I had the best bagel of my life, September 11th, 2001. Okay.
Well,
where were you? Quebec.
Right.
Oh, okay. You weren't in New York?
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
It's so I thought it was so funny.
That is kind of a weird thing, but yeah. Okay.
Steven Spielberg praised how the truck was handled in an exceptionally safe manner by the 50-year-old stunt driver of Carrie Lofton. Okay. Although it appears that the truck is driving at a reckless, unsafe speeds along the winding California roads, it is actually not going more than 30 miles an hour. To get the sense of increased speed, Spielberg borrowed the specially made camera car from the 1968 Steve McQueen thriller Bullet.
Oh my gosh.
Which could lower the camera only 6 inches off the ground. Spielberg also filmed the vehicles against the background of cliffs, which when combined with an upward angle of perspective from the wheels created an optical illusion of faster speed.
That's cool.
So the truck in the movie is never going more than 30 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
To shatter your image of the movie.
Not that, it really was, though. He did some, obviously great angles and stuff. Spielberg is always big for these crazy angles and cinematography, of course. But yeah, so that's pretty cool that they actually did that. And again, lots and lots of like when you want to make the viewer nervous, you have handheld, shaky handheld, and stuff like that. So very cool.
Chuck's Cafe still exists today as of 2021.
Wow.
And is a French restaurant that occupies the original structure in Santa Clarita, California.
Oh, really? It's in Santa Clarita. Interesting.
Ooh, did that burn down?
Oh, it might have recently. There was some fires recently.
Yeah.
So.
With its original runtime of 74 minutes, the TV show or the TV movie was not long enough to be released in theaters. Universal called Steven Spielberg back to shoot additional scenes in order to make it a 90-minute film. These new scenes were the railroad crossing, the school bus, the scene where David phones his wife, and the opening scene where the car backs out of the garage and drives through the city.
Okay.
Which I don't think, I didn't put it in here, but one of the facts was that Steven Spielberg just knocked on this old lady's door and was like, hey, can we film something in your garage? Here's $50.
No.
And she said, sure. And she was like, this young man came and filmed something in my garage. Yeah. I mean, how crazy would that be? Like, when Jaws comes out,
right?
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
Cool.
So,
Steven Spielberg can be seen reflected in the telephone booth during the scene where David Mann is calling the police. During his appearance on Inside the Actors Studio. Remember when Will Ferrell played?
Oh, yeah. God, that was great. That was a great thing as SNL.
He admitted that it was not an intentional cameo, but instead was a mistake. He went on to state that several similar mistakes were revealed when the movie received a theatrical release in Europe, with 18 different occurrences where Spielberg can be seen because the change in aspect ratio for the theatrical release.
Oh.
So they changed the aspect ratio of the movie, which made it wider, which you could just see him in the background.
He's eating a white cheese sandwich in the background.
Yeah, a white cheese sandwich with sideburns.
Right.
And final one, David Mann's car was a 1970 red Plymouth Valiant with California license plate 149 PCE. Near the beginning of the Duel, the car's odometer showed that it had been driven only 4,764 miles.
Wow.
Gotta love Plymouth reliability.
Right, exactly. Plymouth Valiant.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, just even the name Valiant, it was kind of a fun thing, and yes, it was an everyman's car and blah blah blah. So I think actually, like we had talked about this many times before, is the casting of the car is a really important thing. The vehicles is really important, as we'll talk about in the next one.
Yeah.
But I think it was, like you said, I think it was a great choice. But it kind of does piss me off, too, that Spielberg was like, whatever, just grab some red.
Anything red. Anything red. It just needs to be red. That's how I imagine he talks.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Final thoughts. If it were on, would you change the channel?
I probably would, actually. To be honest. I know you would, too. I mean, I probably would just because there's not much to it. I mean, it's like you've seen
I will say, the one occasion I wouldn't. If I drive another red Plymouth Valiant, I like editing a video of a car with that car. I drove the Fast and Furious Mitsubishi Eclipse, so I threw Fast and Furious on. I drove the Bluesmobile. I threw Blues Brothers on.
Good.
I might drive that Batmobile that I sent you. That's totally not a Batmobile.
Oh my gosh!
This guy in northern Wisconsin chopped up a 1960 Plymouth Fury.
Oh wow!
And he welded the doors shut and gave it a bubble roof. Yeah. And he chopped the roof off. Like there's not even A-pillars. There's nothing. If this thing rolls over, it's flat.
Yeah.
And he gave it a double bubble roof, and he made his own 1960s Batmobile, and it's such a terrible job, but also like kind of cool.
I you know what? It's funny to me because I liked it for the idea that it was almost cartoonish.
Yeah.
Because the fins were not like the bubble is not right size.
You're telling me it wasn't movie accurate, that thing?
It is not movie accurate. However, it's still a fun car. Kudos to this guy for trying and doing it. I always wanted to do that with a car. I always wanted to do I'm going to add a fin, fins to the back of it or do something. Good for him for doing it. Yeah. I just thought it was it's bizarre. And if you get to drive it, it'd be awesome. I would love that. But it is one of those things where you look at it and you go is that a cartoon version of the car? Because they do have, like the squatty Like when they make a squatty car and
yeah.
stuff, it's supposed to be like the cool car, but it's real squatty and little or whatever. But anyway, so
we'll see about that. But I would change the channel. I did not like this film.
Well, evidently, I would because there's something kind of weird and dry. It's like having a dry mouth.
Is it the endless desert scenes, or is it the lack of plot, or is it the lack of dialogue, or is it the lack of meaning?
But that is one thing that I think Spielberg shouldn't have done. Yeah, Stevie, let me talk to you. Let me put my
Stevie B.
Stevie,
no wait,
come on.
Stevie S.
Stevie S.
Yeah.
Stevie.
I got mixed up on I got hung up on the Berg.
So one of the things is that most
Hold
of the
on.
time.
Shout out Craig Lieberman.
Oh, shout out and Paul Shin.
And Paul Shin.
Yeah.
Shout out Paul Shin and Craig Lieberman.
So
and Retro Steven.
And Retro Steve.
He's another one of our fans.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, good. And Bella the dog.
And Bella the dog. Oh yeah, Bella the dog. Yeah, I forgot about it.
So one of the things he did that he probably shouldn't have done or whatever was he did a lot of narration dialogue for that. When the character's sitting in the cafe, you hear the person saying stuff. I get it that there's kind of no other way, but it would have been great if he had another character to talk to. You know,
early versions of the script had his wife in the car.
Okay.
And they were going to play off each other. But then
I
think it was Spielberg or someone was like, he wanted to be like a very singular journey of a man regaining his manlyhood.
Right. No, I get that.
But I agree. The voiceover was a little much.
It was because he started talking and I was like, wait a minute, he's not moving his lips. And I was like, oh, he's thinking this in his brain.
Also, did you notice there's a fair amount of like film grain? Just like imperfections in the film.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, it became really noticeable in the desert.
Yeah.
But
anyway, okay, so we're at the end. I just want to throw that in the very end about that. You're not supposed to do a lot of voiceover if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
Because it just cheapens the movie. So.
But join us next episode for Fall Guy, starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, the 2024 film that has nothing to do with this current film.
Absolutely nothing at all.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
All right, bye-bye.